Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 meeting of the City of Beacon Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Jordan Haug and I am the chairman of this board. Joining me are the rest of the board members minus one, along with our attorney, our building inspector, and our secretary. Thank you all for coming. I don't have my normal, you don't have it, do you? Montes does. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. The application materials that will be discussed tonight, including any proposed resolutions and other documents, will be available on the city's website. Also on the city's website is a link to the rules and procedures of our board. I just want to take a minute to explain the board's procedures. We'll hear each application in the order that it's noticed on the agenda. First, we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll open the floor to comments from the public. If you wish to comment, please step forward to the podium when called upon. Clearly state your name and address for the record, and please, if you could, speak into the microphone. All comments should be directed to the board, not to the applicant or city staff. One of the most important things that should be addressed is the fact that we are normally a 5-member board, and you need 3 of 5 votes to be approved for a variance. When we have a quorum, which is 3, you still need 3 votes always. So tonight we are a 4-member board, so you have the possibility of 4 votes instead of 5 votes. We allow, oftentimes applicants do take an adjournment to a subsequent month in order to have the most possible votes at any one time. So again, tonight we are a 4-member board. You are required 3 positive votes for a variance out of the 4 members that are on the board here. That's it for now. Has everyone on the board had the chance to review the minutes from the June 18th, 2024 meeting? And does anybody have any comments, concerns, questions about those minutes? Well, Montes, you were absent, so.
Yeah, I have to abstain.
Yes. Yep. Can I have a motion to approve the June 18th, 2024 minutes?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and an abstain from Montos. And then I have a request to go into executive session for advice of counsel. Can I have a motion for that? Well, I guess, can you make that motion?
Motion to go into executive session.
Motion by Montos. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Stowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll be back. It is 7:34. Can I have a motion to come out of executive session, please?
Motion to come out of executive session?
Motion by Montos. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Stowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing on agenda item number 1?
So moved.
Motion by Stowe. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Montos. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The applicant for 907 Wolcott, could you please come to the microphone and present more?
Good evening, Board.
Hello.
Robert Martin, 907 Walcott Avenue, Beacon, New York, 12508. After discussion, as far as last month's meeting, we believe that the plan submitted is the nicest, cleanest, best looking out of the designs that our architect came up with. And we'd like to move forward with that proposal to the board for their vote. last meeting as well, we addressed concerns from our neighbor about being crowded. Once again, to restate that we're building up, not out, so it wouldn't affect the floor plan. And secondly, they were concerned about us being able to look into their property. We did take some pictures I can present to the board. May I approach? It also noted on the other side of their property too is a 3-story house that towers even higher than all of our houses, so we believe that still would be the best for the neighborhood and for the neighbors, for us and for the city of Beacon. So again, we would like to move forward with that plan. Pending any further questions from our, I guess one of the members was not here last July, if they has any questions as far as the plan and the
Why do you want to build it?
for several reasons. One, again, increase the value of the house, increase the square footage of the house, because it's small, it's only 600 square foot cottage, so it'd be added some room. And then we give us more available space to living space as well. And it really is effectively just dormers in the front and rear of the house.
So, excuse me, because I wasn't here last month.
Sure.
How does this second story sit with the existing footprint of the house?
Right on top. So again, it's just dormers would be on top of the existing structure
So the back of this ranch would be dormers
and front.
and front?
Do you have may I approach again?
The what?
May I approach?
Yeah, of course.
This is the current plot of
The current's
oh,
on
no.
another page. This is what it.
the dormers, yes. So we'll just be adding 2 dormers in the front.
So this is existing roof line?
So
No.
there's an existing, have the second. So this is the existing.
Yeah.
So we'll be adding 2 dormers in the front, and then, so on the last page will be one larger dormer in the back. So effectively though, like I said, the peak is increasing for about 9 feet. But otherwise, it's on the same exact footprint, so that's why it's just moving up. It's not affecting the floor area or the footprint of the house. It's just adding the dormers on top. And then you can see by the other pages there, it just increases the 2 rooms upside, top there, which are for a bedroom and stuff.
Got it. Thank you.
The applicant?
Can I ask Bruce, what's going on with the rest of the property? Is there, everything else is in compliant? Seems to be a lot of stuff going on as we look at those aerial shots.
On the rest of the property?
Yeah.
I do have one item I do have to take care of with the applicant, from the photos from the neighbor. Apparently all those tents are accessory structures, they need to be removed. So, it's only allowed limited of, I believe there's 2 structures with
They're permanent structures?
no, well, I guess they're accessory structures, but I think the code alludes to the fact that, you know, the fabric structure is a accessory structure.
Is that because they're footed?
Not because of footage, just it doesn't, it says regardless if it's, I just forgot to look at this after the last meeting. Building shall be permanent except that fabric-covered frames or structures are permitted, provided that the structure and the fabric are appropriately maintained in good condition. But this falls under the requirements for detached garages and other accessory buildings. So it's considered an accessory building, in my opinion.
So he's in the process of removing that to
If they
become
remove
compliant?
they remove them from the site, but then now you have whatever's underneath it that also needs to get removed. So then you have an accumulation of storage in the backyard.
What do you mean by underneath that? Like a flooring?
No, there's no floor, they just set on the ground.
Okay.
Well, what's,
So they're covering, I'm assuming they're covering up something, correct?
Yeah, my antique cars are in there,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, you're
It's just,
cars are-
yeah, it's just a fabric covered over a metal tubing, and my antique cars are in there, yeah.
You have cars in there.
Yeah,
And all those cars are registered?
all of them are registered, yes.
And what's your position on all that?
They're easy to move because they're only temporary, so I have no issue with that. If you were to grant the application based on removing those tents and leaving the cars, that's,
Just to be clear, either way, it's currently, in theory, they're in violation, without making you make a ruling
In
here.
terms of the cumulative amount of accessory structures on the property, yes.
And what is the maximum number of that?
I believe it's 2. So the large garage in the back would count as 1. And I believe that one other of those tents could stay. Actually, sorry, no, I have to retract that. It's, there's a maximum square footage as well,
Okay.
which I don't have in front of me right now. But I want to say it's probably in the neighborhood of, for that zoning district, I want to say it's like 500 square feet in that neighborhood.
Are we talking about lot coverage?
No, we're talking about the cumulative,
Accessory square footage?
accessory structures.
So if they're removed, what happens to the antique cars or whatever he said is being protected now?
As long as the cars are registered, they're allowed on the property.
They're allowed in the yard?
Well, if is there a driveway, I'm assuming because it's all,
Yeah.
they're all in front of the garage. There's that
Correct.
big garage that goes along the back, and they're all in front of the garage.
Okay, so they're
So
not
if
in
it's
the
a
yard.
paved area, right.
Got it.
and there's no room in the garage for the cars that are now under the fabric structures?
no, I have a few I'm a collector. So right now, yeah, there's cars in the garage as well, so.
Can you show us on the plans where Bruce is referring to?
Sure.
Where they're located and where the accessories are?
Okay. So this says, is mentioned here, new car garage, so the garage is already here. It was put in place back when I moved in 17, 18 years ago. So the ones he's talking about here is those little, the tent carports that are over here
Yeah,
and here. Yeah.
here.
Yes, from the garage, so the
But
the
is that-
driveway ends here, this is gravel area all back here.
Yep.
And these are sitting on top of the gravel for drainage.
So they would stay on top of the gravel and they would be okay with that? Got it. Thank you for helping me understand. I don't have any other questions.
And, yeah, so Bruce, just to confirm, you would be going, assuming a variance is granted, you would not issue a building permit unless the property was otherwise compliant with the zoning code, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant right now from the board?
No.
All right. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this application?
My name is Jack Mendelson. I'm here with my wife Carol. We own the property adjacent to 907 at 911 Wolcott Avenue. It's a 2/3 of an acre with a house and a yard. This is a property that has been in my wife's family for literally 100 years. And she was born there, grew up there, lived there while she taught at the Beacon schools. And we're here to state our opposition to the granting of the variance for two main reasons. First of all, we think that the property is already non-conforming and therefore should not be enlarged. As you can tell from the photographs that I've provided, this is a small property, 1/3 of an acre, that has 3 edifices on it. An apartment building with 2 residential units in the front, a house behind that, a four-car garage behind that. So we think, first of all, it's likely that these 3 structures cover more than 25% of the lot, which would, I believe, be an issue. And let me mention also that the area is covered with cars. There are at least 10 cars covering the space in the lot besides the 3 structures. So we think the property is overbuilt, overcrowded. There are too many residential units for that type of area, for that type of lot. We think that it's utterly out of character with the rest of the community. In other words, this is a neighborhood, which you probably are familiar with, of single-family homes with backyards, like ours. And then this property looks like a commercial property. There's not one shred of green in the back. It looks like a used car dealer or something. It does not look like a residential property. And we think it makes no sense to further enlarge and expand a property that's already non-conforming and inconsistent with the rest of the neighborhood.
Be specific, non-conforming in what way, in your opinion?
Well, in 2 respects. First of all, there are 3 residential units. There's a multi-unit apartment building and a house on this lot. Isn't this lot zoned for, we believe that that's out of compliance with
Bruce, is
zoning
that true?
regulations.
Yes.
Sorry, I wasn't here last month, so I haven't seen your pictures. I'm trying to get up to speed with what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, the lot is 1/3 of an acre. In the front is an apartment building with 2 units, 2 residential units. Then there's a little bit of space for cars. Then there's this house that our neighbors propose to expand. Then behind the house, there are more cars. There's no yard, more cars, and then a 4-car garage. So, as I said, this just seems completely inconsistent with the rest of the
So
neighborhood.
just to reiterate, the 2 units in that primary house are non-conforming,
Yeah, the front of the property.
Pre-existing non-conforming.
pre-existing non-conforming. Got it.
So that's our first main point, which is that we should not, it doesn't make sense to us that a property that's already non-conforming should be further enlarged. Second point that I want to emphasize, and this is stated in the letter that I had provided last month, is that we believe that this project would decrease the value of our property. And that would stem from the fact, number one, that we would lose privacy in our backyard because from this higher level that would be added to the house next door, they could then look into our backyard. And second of all, this construction would impede views, existing views from our house that we have today.
Is your
So
house a single floor or multi-floor?
Our house is 2 floors.
Okay.
The house is almost 200 years old. So The net effect of these two factors, we think, would be to decrease the market value of our property. And in fact, I will say that we think the market value of our property has already been decreased by the overbuilding and crowding in this lot next door. And this project would only make that worse. So those are the two things we want to bring up. Those are the reasons why we think that this variance should not be granted.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
Bruce, is there some regulation, I don't recall one, that says you're limited to how many cars you can have on a property?
No, I don't believe there's a limit to the cars. I believe it's currently there's minimum parking that you're supposed to provide, but there's no limit on the number of cars as long as they're all registered vehicles.
Right. So that's not a question of conforming to the zoning rules, it's just your opinion of whether or not you like lots of cars on the next door neighbor's lawns.
It's limited by your driveway space, isn't it?
Yes, by the
Yeah, it's limited by your driveway
But,
space.
yeah, and I believe with the garage, you know, you have 4 open doors that are right in front of this garage, which is all paved area. So they're actually parking in the garage. Probably not easily maneuverable to get in and out of there, but they're in.
What is the obligation of an owner that has an unregistered car, just for my,
If it's unregistered, they're allowed to have one unregistered vehicle. They have to register that with our office, and they're only allowed to have it for 1 year. So after that year, then they would either have to register the vehicle and insure to put it on the road, or get rid of the vehicle.
and that's exposed to,
The ones that are outside, I believe in the garage, it's a matter of, we can't really get into the garage, and we can't force anybody to show us what they have in there.
right.
Right.
But in theory, it's, in
If
theory,
if it's in the garage, it's a non-issue, because it's within the building,
okay,
the store.
got it. That was just
Okay.
interesting for me, yeah. And then just one other question. The side of the property that this variance is applying for is on which side of the property relative to the neighbors?
So it's opposite the neighbor's property. It's the side that abuts the school district property.
Okay.
One more question. What would it take to get this property all back in compliance?
With,
Meaning the 2 units in front, the house, the accessory structures?
well, if they'd have to get rid of the two-family unit that's in the front. That would have to go and conform with today's zoning. Because today, it's only allowed to have one single-family home on property.
And how long has that two-family been around for?
I believe it's from the records, I don't have an exact date, but it was there prior to zoning.
Prior to zoning, okay.
So it's 60s?
Yeah, it's at least that.
So then, if you don't mind, Bruce, just to, I know you're getting a lot of questions. So to confirm, the number of dwelling units or structures or whatever the term of art is pre-existing non-conforming, correct?
Correct.
The building coverage on the property, I think there was a mention of 25%, that's also pre-existing non-conforming then?
That, I didn't actually do the calculation, I
Yeah.
thought it was on the plan.
Yeah. But given that the buildings themselves are pre-existing non-conforming, then the coverage itself would have to be...
We're not increasing the
Yeah.
lot coverage with this proposal.
Okay.
So everything's gonna stay within the same footprints that are there.
And then my final question, are houses in this zoning district permitted to have 2 floors, separate and apart from setback issues? Is there a height issue here or
Yes,
2?
they're allowed to go 2.5 stories.
Okay, so the height is not a non-issue here, it's just the
And
setback?
The height, overall height is a maximum 35 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, welcome.
Did any of George's questions or Bruce's answers lead to more questions that the board would like to ask, or anything that we'd like to discuss before we proceed.
I have no more questions.
I'd like to ask one question, just to clarify it, because it's not with them, it's a question about zoning, really. The only issue here is the question of the proposed development and whether or not it adds more non-compliance. It doesn't matter that the apartment building in the front of the lot is non-conforming, because they're not trying to change that, right?
Yeah, not changing the problem, they're changing the single-family home that's on the property.
Right.
I mean, I would make an argument that that's for us to evaluate, right? So I think that that evaluation is asked in the questions, or, in the factors, right? And so as we go through the factors, I think we would weigh the benefit the applicant seeks to all the factors relative to the totality of what is there. So with that being said, can I have a motion to close the public hearing on agenda item number 1?
Motion,
Motion by Elaine. Oh,
Just wanted to make one more point. So he's talking about an apartment building. It's not an apartment building in the front. It's only a single-story house, small house. If you see it, on the plans there.
I don't have,
Oh, you know that, okay. It's only, it's almost the same size as the cottage that's here, that's in the front. It's split into two. It's not an apartment, it's not an apartment building, it's just a house. It's one-story frame.
it's a duplex.
Correct, it's side by side. One bedroom on one side, one bedroom on the other side. It's not an apartment building.
all right. So we have a motion to close the public hearing from Elaine. Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Stowe. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion? No, I'm sorry. Let's evaluate the factors.
Yes.
All right. As to whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood. I'm
to
sorry.
interrupt. Because there are 4 members,
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
As I mentioned at the top, we are normally a 5-member board. We have 4 members today, so you would need to get, as always, you would need to get 3 affirmative votes. Just want to confirm you wish for us to proceed this evening.
Yes, that is acceptable.
Okay, thank you. All right. As to whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. Discuss.
Well, to me, it doesn't sound desirable, given the congestion on the lot as it exists today. And just to keep building seems to me, I guess to say, undesirable. It's very congested, is what it sounds like to me.
I don't, excuse me. The congestion seems to be mostly involving the amount of cars on the property. Going up another story in the same footprint, I don't see as adding congestion to the property. It's going to look better than it currently looks now. Other conditions that Bruce is going to address are a different matter. That same footprint's going to be there whether you put a second story on it or not.
Bruce, how solid is it that the other things go away? Or, because I would be open to looking at those as contingencies.
Basically, at this point, because there is an issue, it wasn't brought up between these 2 meetings, if the board decides to grant the variance, This would have to be cleaned up prior to the building permit being issued. If you don't grant the variance, I still have to go and cite them because it's, it's now we acknowledge the fact that there's more accessory structures per se on the property that's allowed.
And if they're cited, then they're obligated to
We're
act.
obligated to follow through. We have to follow through, make sure that's been cleaned up.
Got it.
Stowe?
Yeah, I'm concerned, like Montos is, about the congestion on the property. Even though we don't have a statute specifically about the number of cars, the fact that it sounds like it's just mobbed with automobiles, even if in fact there's enough driveway for them to sit on, it just sounds like adding additional area seems negative. And then, of course, I have the question, because now they already have the other building that's been divided into two. What's to say they wouldn't start renting rooms on the second story? Why are they building the second story? I mean, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to have a friend move in and then there'll be 3 more cars on the lot? I start to wonder about developing more on this lot and whether it's actually, good for the neighborhood.
Can the applicant comment? I had asked you earlier, what's the reason for wanting this, and you said to increase market value. Is that the
Yes.
only reason? What else are you going to do with this?
No, so that's one of the reasons. So if you look at the plan, the second reason as well, because it is only 600 square foot, so it's very small for 2 of us and our adopted cats. So we would like right now it's just a living room, a bedroom, bathroom, and a small kitchen.
And how long have you been here?
Between 17 and 18 years.
Okay.
And so,
So are you considering selling it?
No.
That's the market value kind of question.
no, we've been here, yes. So, yes, it has improved, because I have noticed my tax bill going up, which is good. So, the value of the house has improved, but no, it's just my wife and I, and it was just to add an extra bedroom. That way we can turn the downstairs bedroom into a, dining room or whatever, and having a study upstairs as well. So we just increased, make our living comfort, since we are getting older, nicer. So we have some little extra elbow room.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add my comments on this factor, I think our role is to evaluate the variance that is being granted or requested. And I think that a lot of the issues on this property are enforcement issues that the building department must address. And I think that if they are addressed, this variance, as many like it in the past, would not create an undesirable change as it's in the footprint. And more specifically, it's on a side of the property that is closest to a thoroughfare to one of the schools, not inside a setback to a neighbor. The public hearing's closed, no. As to whether the benefit of the applicant seeks can be achieved through another method feasible for the applicant to pursue that does not require an area variance. Stop.
I don't think so.
Have you looked at building flat as opposed to building up?
No, because as was mentioned earlier, we're at the 25% floor area. That's why we didn't want to exceed that. That's why staying on the same footprint doesn't increase the structures. It just goes up, and it doesn't affect that floor area, so.
Okay, so then I agree with Stowe. I don't think it can be achieved in another way.
I agree also.
On that factor, I agree.
There's always subterranean. I love it.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the feasibility factor, right? as to whether the requested variance is substantial.
Putting the congestion to the side, I don't think it's substantial. The building up, the non-compliance, the undesirable comments that I made before maybe contribute, but I wouldn't say it's really substantial.
I agree with you.
Since it's staying within the same footprint, I don't see it as substantial.
I'll just note mathematically, I think it is substantial, but relative to the sum of the request, it is not. Mathematically, it's substantial, meaning a 15-foot variance is required, and they're requesting, a 15-foot setback's required, they're requesting a 5-foot setback, so they're asking for a 10-foot variance, but that already is the existing setback, so I think I wanted to put that on the record. As to whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district.
So when we talk about the neighborhood, I thought there were two houses here. There was 709, or 907 and 911. Is there something, am I missing? Is there an additional neighboring neighborhood? No, right? So given that 911 is already 2 stories, and it's permitted to go 2.5, as Bruce said, I don't think it'll have an adverse effect. Because I read definition here of neighborhood as those 2 houses.
I agree, and since it's on the side of the property that abuts the school district, I don't see it as having a detrimental effect.
Stuff. Yeah, I think we all, or I can only speak for myself, I think that my opinion is that the current, what appears to be the current violations on the property probably do have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood, but the requested variance would not if the rest of the house, the rest of the property was to code, permitting the pre-existing non-conforming, but the additional structures on the property, that's my opinion. As to whether the alleged difficulty is self-created.
Yes.
Of course. And then, as to whether the requested variance is the minimum variance necessary and adequate to preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community.
Yes.
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 All right. And then just want to confirm with the applicant, should we be inclined to grant the variance, we generally have 2 conditions, one of which is to make sure all fees are current with the city. Another is that the building permit is issued within 6 months, and then construction complete within 24 months of the date of the issuing of the building permit. Would there be any issues in complying with those restrictions?
No issues whatsoever.
All right.
Thank you.
And then, although it's not a condition of the granting of the variance, of course, Bruce has discussed, no building permit would be issued without the property being in compliance of all zoning code. Okay, all right. With all that being said, could I have a motion on the application?
I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance with an additional condition,
Sure.
and that is that the additional story is only used by the primary resident of the house and not used for any other type of purpose such as rentals, et cetera.
George, are we allowed to do that?
That's an interesting question. Typically, conditions are directly related to concerns coming from the granting of the variance. So, you know, if it was, this is a setback variance, so is the concern with additional people renting directly related to a setback? Maybe not, but at the same time, there is a question of, I know the city's general questions are people renting out spaces and whether that's permitted, right? I know that's a concern in the city. So it would be a condition that could be reasonable, but at the same time, if you have no issue with it, it shouldn't be an issue. So I'll ask the applicant, do you have an issue with that?
No, as I stated last month, because we do have the 2 additional apartments up front, that is adequate, that we have no intention of renting inside our house to anyone else.
Or Airbnb?
Or no Airbnb, no.
And so with that being said, I think there's no issue, so you can make that condition. The applicant has indicated he's willing to go along with it, so I think it's reasonable.
Okay. So Montos, could you just restate that for the record?
Yeah, so I make a motion to approve the requested variance with the contingency, or excuse me,
Condition?
that word, I can't get it out for some reason, need more coffee. That the addition not be used for any additional income, must be occupied by the primary resident of the property.
Yes, that is acceptable.
All right. Can I have a second?
Second,
Second by Stowe, and then I will call the roll. Stowe?
yes.
All right. Montos?
Yes.
Elaine?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing on agenda item number 2?
Motion open?
Can I have a second?
Second,
Motion by Montos, second by Stowe. All in favor?
Aye.
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 41 Verplank.
Thank you for granting this variance board.
could you speak into the microphone, please?
Sorry. Thank you for your indulgence in this variance. The only points really I have
Name and
is
address.
that,
Name and address, please.
excuse me?
Name and address, please.
I'm sorry. My name is John Kanan, and the address is 41 Verplank Avenue in Beacon, New York. We've already built the driveway, and at the time, our contractor told us that we did not need a permit to do it. There's no parking on the street. Verplank has no parking on it anywhere. Our property is also a small lot, and we have no space in the back for any parking. The only parking that we have now is the ones that we put in. We're just requesting that we get a variant to cover the parking that's been installed.
So the new driveway that you put in exceeds the curb cutouts. You realize that, right?
Yeah, a little, yeah. It is a wide cutout, wider than most. I didn't measure it exactly to find out how wide it was.
You made the comment that the driveway you built is the only parking there was, but there was an older centerpiece that went to...
Right, that was the only parking that we had, was that centerpiece.
That went to the garage.
Right.
Right, so there is parking in the garage too, right?
Well, there could be, yes.
So you're not using it for parking now because it's filled with other things or something?
Yes. Yeah, it's storage right now.
Okay,
How many cars do you have that need to be parked?
We have 2 cars.
But the driveway you built appears to hold at least 3,
and a garage.
and a garage,
And
correct?
garage.
Yes.
So that's 4 potentially parking spaces.
But we do have a lot of visitors, you know, but
So, when was it that you bought the house? How long has this been?
excuse me?
When did you buy the house? How long have you been?
About a year.
Oh,
We've been there for about a year.
And when you bought the house, you didn't look into the issue of parking? 'Cause-
No, well, we did in that we got a contractor to enlarge it.
Right. But you knew when you moved there, that, for example, Verplank has no parking?
Yeah, that has no parking.
Right, okay.
Bruce, the side that's extended by the property line, is there any setback requirement there?
It's 5 feet.
I don't have the code in front of me, but I believe the way it says there's no parking in the front yard. And then any driveway or parking, I guess, into the side or rear yard has to be 5
5
feet from
feet.
the property line.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it's worded, I don't have it in front of me.
I mean, it's hard to tell from the pictures, but
So
it doesn't
they are
appear the,
quite- They are quite close to the property.
yeah, it doesn't appear that there's 5 feet there, so there would have to be a variance for that as well, right? So this is not just about parking in the front yard.
It's also I mean, the front yard is the first issue. And then I guess, yes, it would have to be 5 feet from the property line, which is
Right.
the second issue.
So I think we're getting these front yard applications. Can we, just for the record and for my education again, define what a front yard is?
The front yard is I believe the way it's worded in there is it's the required front yard, which would be the area within the setback, the required setback from the front property line, which in this case is probably the entire front yard.
Okay, and so if this house didn't exist, would the only permitted parking exist in front of a garage?
Yes.
And, okay. And if there was no garage, there would be no permitted parking?
No, they could have a driveway back, but it would be going on the side of the house, because it wouldn't be
Yeah,
a
they would have
garage.
to go to the side of the house, as I was just saying, yes, it's, yeah, if there was no garage, yes, it wouldn't be allowed to be any parking in front.
Okay.
Bruce, I have a question. The expansion of the driveway, adding those 2 other spots, would that require a permit usually?
Yes.
Yes.
Requires, a driveway permit is required from the highway department, because sometimes that involves a curb cut in the front. But regardless, when they apply for it, we have to sign off on it as well for the zoning requirements.
So with that being said, I know the applicant indicated that the contractor suggested that there was not an issue. Do you know if the contractor ever applied for a permit, or this work was just
The
done?
contractor didn't apply for the permit.
Okay.
And there's a long list of reasons too, right? There's the grade of the driveway. There's a whole long list of things that are required in the analysis of whether or not someone can build a driveway, for example.
Correct.
So the
None of that gets done either if there's no permit.
So the evaluation is done by two departments then, your department, the building department, and then also the highway department?
Yes, correct.
Right. And so, your department is evaluating it from a zoning perspective, and then the highway department's evaluating it from a curb cut and then safety?
Curb cut and sidewalk as well, because most of the properties have a sidewalk in front of them, which would need to be altered.
Okay.
There's also work going on the side of the house. A big pit
Yes,
on the one side.
that's what led to the discovery of the driveways.
Oh, so that wasn't,
Somebody in the office, in my office, went out on a complaint and found work downstairs in the basement, but then while he was there, he noticed the driveway as well, as it was, fairly new concrete that was poured.
So the work in the basement was unpermitted?
Yes,
And what, is that now permitted?
not yet, they're still working through that portion.
Well, can I ask what the scope of that work was?
I believe that was what, to finish your basement for recreational,
Yes,
is that correct?
yes.
Was that involving electrical or plumbing?
It would need a building permit to finish the space, because currently it's an unfinished space. So you would need, again, I didn't review what was going on in the basement. Corey, who works in my office, took care of it. From what I understand is it would definitely need a building permit for the finishing of the basement, an electrical permit for the electrical work, and I'm not sure there was any plumbing too as well.
Yes.
There'd be 3 permits that he still has to take out with us.
What, was your understanding that you didn't need a permit for any of that work as well?
I didn't know. The contractor that we had, we actually fired him, but he took and put a door down into the basement. It was not the right width. It was not at the right level from the foundation. The door has to go. Now we have to have another contractor come in and fix all that.
Is that an
because-
exterior door or an interior door?
Excuse me?
Exterior or interior door?
Exterior. It was a door going into the basement.
Is that the Bilco door with the dug up in the front is going on?
Dug up beside the building, yes.
It's on the side of the building or?
On the side.
Was that the same contractor that did the,
Driveway?
the driveway?
No. No. But the one that did the driveway is going to help us try and fix what the other contractor did. Because he took money from us and didn't do the work, and didn't show up to work, and
The fired contractor?
the fired one.
Right.
And he was supposed to get permits. I asked him to get permits for everything. He told me that was in the works, and I never did see them.
So one contract, so both contractors, well, at least one contractor claims to not know permits were needed, and another didn't apply for permits, is that?
Right.
Correct.
For the basement work, he knew that we wanted permits for that, but he didn't pursue it. I mean, he kept telling me he was going to. He said that there was going to be an engineer coming and a person from the inspection from the city to look at everything. And they'd come on a certain day, they never came. Another day, didn't come. Finally, we fired him because he wasn't doing what he said he was going to do.
And then you came to find out that there was never any permits applied to that point?
Right. No, he didn't do for any permits.
But there was work done in the house at that point?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, he went ahead and started doing the work without the permits.
And you said the driveway contractor is gonna help, he's stepping in to remediate the issue with the basement? Okay.
Right. Yes.
And the driveway contractor just didn't know that permits were required for the driveway?
For the driveway, no, he didn't. He thought, as far as he knew, there were no regulations
Okay.
for that.
I have no further questions.
Can I make a point?
Sure, yeah, of course.
Is there a way that we could cut our driveway and I'd have the contractor fix it, make it the right width for the curb. Would that be acceptable?
I guess one question I brought up earlier, I don't have site plans in front of me for this, so I don't know what your setbacks are. But how close is, if I look at the right of the house, so here's Verplank. If I look at the right of the house, you have 9.9 feet is a side yard going down to 6.5 feet. If I look at the addition, how wide is the addition that was put on the right of the existing driveway? Is it at least 6 or 8 feet?
I believe that I wrote down the right distances.
So the width is 8.5 feet, if I'm reading that right?
Yeah, that's what it says.
So if the width is 8.5 feet and your largest point is 9.9, you don't come anywhere close to the 5-yard side yard requirement. 5-foot side yard requirement. So that means you gotta, at minimum, cut that right in half. And then we have the issue with the extension on the left side of the existing driveway,
8'3".
which is another 8'3".
So is your question to us, is your point that what existed prior was thinner than the curb cut, and you're now,
Right.
in theory, amending your application to say
Well,
you would want to expand it to the width of the curb cut?
Yeah, because then, at least it would be, then would be under regulations. I
Right,
believe.
but he still wouldn't be in conformity
So I think,
on the side yard.
I think, Jordan, your point is correct, the understanding, but I'm going to ask the applicant, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you were to go back to your contractor and say, Mr. Contractor or Miss Contractor, can you correct this driveway issue? You're willing to remove at least part of it and go through the proper permitting process with highway department, with building department, and if a variance is needed at that point, you will come for a revised variance. Is that my correct understanding?
He told us that he would correct it.
Okay.
So if the whole thing had to go, he would take it.
With
And he
obviously,
wouldn't charge us
and with
anything.
obviously any permitting required, because Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just a matter of removing one, the highway department would also have to authorize a wider curb cut potentially, and the sloping and drainage and all that has to be correct.
He's not asking for a wider curb cut.
No, but if he were to, if the contractor, and maybe I'm wrong, again, Bruce, if the contractor were to say, I'm going to correct this driveway, would a wider curb cut be required?
If they need it.
Mhm.
And depending if they're gonna put the cars, side by side.
Yeah.
Yes, then probably a wider curb cut would be needed.
Well, so, hold on, we got to back up then, right? So I think what was asked was, could the driveway be expanded to the curb cut?
Yes, and if that's the case, without touching touching the curb cut, and just making it the width, then you're almost back to where you were to begin with.
Well, you have to,
Except with some additional width to the driveway.
you have to presume
might
that
be
the
enough.
existing curb cut and the existing driveway were designed,
They kind of
Together.
align with one another.
So, well, I guess that's a question, right? Are curb cuts generally wider than the driveway
Yes.
on purpose, right? So the question here is, he would like a curb cut, I'm sorry, a driveway that is as wide as the current curb cut, which might require a wider curb cut. But we're not discussing the expansion of the driveway to the expanded possible necessary curb cut, but the current curb cut.
Right?
Is everyone
Yep.
on the same page with
I
that?
think- Yes, and I think with the applicant, again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free to cut me off if I'm rambling. I think when the applicant said that they could look into remediating this, because you said remove some of it, so that just triggered my thinking. if there was still an expanded driveway to have 2 cars instead of 3 hypothetically, and it required a curb cut, you would go, or your contractor would get the proper permits. Bruce, you would look at it, highway department would look at it, and whether it's next month or next year, whenever it is, if there are any variances required, you would then come back for your variance for that, but for that proposed driveway, whether it's the existing curb cut or a new curb cut, however the revision is, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Does that
right.
make sense?
It makes, yeah, so just to so I think to restate what you're saying is the appropriate action is a withdrawal of this application currently.
I would say not necessarily a withdrawal. If you want, and you obviously, you say it much more eloquently than I do, there are only 4 members here tonight. So you could always, even if there were 5 members, you could always say, listen, I'd like to come back next month, let me speak to my contractor. If you have discussions with your contractor and they come up with a much nicer driveway, a more feasible driveway, something that, you know, the building department and the highway department says, yeah, that could work, you can always come back next month with those revised plans. Bruce would make a determination on those, and at that point, it's a de facto withdrawal. But to withdraw now without knowing what the change might be, would be premature.
All right. So based on what George is saying, is I think the plan is for you to go back to your contractor, for him to revise the plans. So we have, like, right now, obviously, you know, you made a verbal application, but we would need to see, well, really, the highway and the building departments would need to review those plans, and then at that point, if there was a variance needed, then that would come to our board. Bruce, you would agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Order of operations? Do you understand that?
And again, that's the approach you want to take. No one is telling you you have to do that. It's just because you brought it up, that's how the conversation started. And that would be the approach if you were to take that path. It's up to you.
But in the meantime, as it stands now, he's still non-conforming.
As it stands now, the driveway that you are evaluating is the driveway presented in the photos and all that. And I would say potentially, if you do decide to come back, again, if you decide to come back, if there could be maybe some clarity 100% on the width and the side yard setbacks. I know you guys had some questions about those. Typically, just those numbers play a role, so they just want to know the exact numbers 100% certain. So you could always say, I come back next month, it's the same driveway, but I've confirmed the numbers. Here's a clearer drawing, whatever the case is. So at the end of the day, it's up to you. But whatever information you can provide, the better the board can evaluate the project. And if, of course, you change the project, then you go through the same process again. Bruce will say, this is the status, and you go from there. But again, it's up to you.
So we'll have to refile everything?
If you were to refile, you said?
We'll have to refile everything for the variance?
No,
If-
if you were to redo your if you were to reconfigure the driveway proposal,
Okay.
and it goes to Bruce, Bruce would say, okay, it's a new proposed driveway, it's the same variant, potentially the same variance required. You already have the application will stay open until next month, or the following month, or whenever you decide to withdraw or grant or deny, whatever the case is. So it would not be a new application, it would just be a revised application. This would be a revision, which you are entitled to do, and then the board can vote on the final driveway as presented. So, again,
Okay.
up to you.
That's what I would like to do.
That's what you'd like to do.
All right.
I would just recommend that you and your contractor read the zoning regs about driveways, because you'll realize some important facts about where you want to orient.
Right.
Like, we don't like driveways that go right up to the front door of your house, for example, things like that. So if you're gonna change the plan a little, head towards the outside line of your property, not the front door.
And your contractor, again, should look into that, just remind them, there's a code, I have this variance, please look into it, maybe speak to the highway department, or see what's feasible. And then it's next month, if you say you need more time, you can always reach out to Mercedes and say, I'd like to adjourn for next month. Next month is September, if you say I need until October, that's perfectly fine, there's no obligation to appear next month. But you are taking that additional time to have the best proposed project and for the board to best evaluate.
Hey, you're welcome to bring your contractor here too, if that individual is the one who could speak to the more specifics to support you.
Okay.
All right, so I will, can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on agenda item number 2 until such a time that the applicant is ready to represent or withdraw?
Motion to adjourn until the applicant is ready to represent.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Monto, second by Elaine, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Motion by Stowe, second by Elaine, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.